What's up, Brew Crew? Welcome back to Beer City Board Games. I've been away for a bit, doing some of the other things that I really enjoy doing, like hanging out with friends and family, watching bad horror movies, and going to see live music. But I'm back now, and I'm ready to get started on some 2025 content for you all. So, with that, it does feel a little bit late in the year to be starting it, but today I'm going to give you my top anticipated games of 2025. Now, a couple of caveats on this list. Just like every year, I don't know for certain that any of these games are going to come out in 2025. I'm just going by what their listed year of release is on Board Game Geek. Also, there are several games that were on past anticipated games lists that have not come out yet, and while I'm still very much looking forward to those games, all of the games that I'm going to talk about today have not been on a previous list. And finally, I do have a couple of honorable mentions because I like to cheat on these lists. The first of my honorable mentions is Schlock, the B-movie board game. I love B-movies, and I love the idea of playing a board game about making them. Then there's Miskatonic Tales, Journey to Innsmouth. I still really enjoy the cosmic horror genre, and I'm very curious to see Chaosium's take on a Lovecraftian board game. I am also very interested in checking out Horror on the Orient Express, although that one has been on a previous list. And the last of my honorable mentions is The Druids of Edera, a recently announced new Stefan Feld game coming from Alea and set to be released late in 2025. The combo of Feld and Alea have produced some of my favorite games, so I'm really excited to learn more about this one. It probably would have made the actual list if there was any more information out there for it. Okay, that's it for my honorable mentions. Now let's get to the real list. I do have these ranked in order of how excited I am to play them, although I am definitely excited for all of them to get released. Okay, let's get started. Number 6 on my list is a game that I had a chance to learn a little bit about at Gen Con last year, and that's Avalon, the Riven Veil. This game is coming out from Shadowborn Games, who created Oathsworn Into the Deepwood, which is an epic campaign boss battler game that we are still working our way through. It sounds like Avalon will be a fully competitive area control style game, and that has me very excited for this one. Oathsworn has some of the most engaging storytelling of any campaign that I've played so far, but I love the idea of Avalon being a standalone one-shot style game. I think that's going to make it much easier to get to the table. I also love the fact that it's based on Arthurian legend. I think that's a fantastic theme that has not been overused. Plus the miniatures look incredible and the artwork looks amazing. It's the type of game that I took one look at and immediately was thinking, I want to play a game in this world. So that's my number 6 for this list, Avalon, the Riven Veil. Number 5 is another game with some fantastic looking artwork, and that's Deep Regrets. This is a game all about fishing more and more horrible things out of the sea. Some of those things are real and still pretty terrifying, and some of them are nightmare creatures that look like they're straight out of a Lovecraft story. Now, I have not yet had an opportunity to play the video game Dredge, but this game looks like it's very similar, if not directly inspired by that game. The big draw for me here really is the artwork. If I'm not mistaken, the designer is also the artist in this case, which is always impressive to me, but something about this art style just really grabs me. I'd love to have an art print of this hanging up on my game room wall. It's somehow both cartoony and creepy at the same time, and I love the dark underwater aesthetic that they've achieved. I can't wait to get my hands on a copy, and I'm really wishing that I had backed this one on Kickstarter. That's Deep Regrets. My number 4 anticipated game of 2025 is Ayar, the Children of the Sun. This is from the team of Fabio Lopiano, Ian O'Toole, and Osprey Games, which gave us Merv and Sankori. It looks like Fabio has several interesting looking titles coming out this year, but I really like the look and the feel of this series of games. As I've said before, I'm a big fan of his games, and I especially like the way that he uses positive player interaction in his game design. Many of the games that I've played of his have featured this pretty heavily, and it's a really interesting concept to me. I can take an action because it'll be good for me, but it's possible that it'll be just as good for you. So should I take that action or find one that doesn't benefit you quite as much? I'm not sure if that's going to show up in this game, but it's at least got me intrigued. It does sound like this one has a highest lowest scoring system in it as well, which I also love. It's the idea that you'll be influencing two different tracks, and whichever track you've moved the least on will determine your score at the end of the game. Again, I don't know a lot about any of these games really, but I love that type of scoring, and so that, along with the designer, artist, and publisher, has me super excited to try out Ayar Children of the Sun. Number 3 on this list is a game that I got a preview of at Origins last year, and I definitely recommend going back to check out that video. I will put a link in the description, and that's Lairs from Kids Table Board Games. KTBG has put out some real bangers, and they've got games that we play even when our kids don't want to play. Creature Comforts and Maple Valley were fantastic, and we also really enjoyed Capybaras from last year. Now, those were all designed by Roberta Taylor, who is definitely on my designers to watch list at this point. Lairs is designed by Chris Westmus, and I believe this is his first published design, although please feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. Even so, I trust KTBG, and especially after seeing the game in action, I'm very interested to play this one for myself. Lairs is a 2-player game where each person is going to create their own dungeon for the other person to try and find their way through. It's a really cool concept, which reminds me a little bit of Battleship, except there's way more interesting decisions to make. You'll be trying to gather up treasure while making your way through the maze, avoiding traps and monsters, and whoever escapes with the most loot is the winner. It's got that familiar KTBG aesthetic, although it is a little bit less cute than their Creature Comfort games, but still, I'm very excited to check out and play Lairs. All right, my number 1 and number 2 anticipated games this year were very close, and it very easily could have gone either way. But my number 2 anticipated game for 2025 is Sweetlands, designed by Totsuka Cho and published by Uchibo Koya. This is the same team that gave us both Aqua Garden and Ostia, which is a game that I really fell in love with. It sounds like this is a bit more of a city building style game, and the buildings will be made out of goodies like brownies, cheese, and ice cream. Looking at this game on Kickstarter, it looks incredible, which really comes as no surprise from this publisher. And I love that this game has such a cool, cute artwork and interesting theme, but it's definitely a heavy Euro-style game, just with a fresh take. And this is one of the big reasons that I've become such a fan of this team. I love seeing these games using familiar mechanisms in a new way. Sweetlands looks like it has elements of worker placement, as well as some tile laying and card play involved. Honestly, it looks like there's a lot going on in this game, but the art and graphic design make it seem like it's not quite so intimidating. And this designer and publisher duo have made some really smooth games in the past, so I am confident that this is going to be a game that I end up loving. Okay, that's my number 2 anticipated game for 2025, Sweetlands. Now, on to my number 1. All right, finally, my number 1 anticipated game of 2025 is actually a streamlined version of a big, heavy game that I fell in love with this year at Origins. We had a chance to play Hegemony while at that convention, and it really blew me away with how interesting and thematic it was. And so I am incredibly excited to check out World Order from Hegemonic Games in 2025. Now, if you're not familiar with Hegemony, it's basically everything you learned about in your econ classes shoved into a board game. It's very asymmetrical, with one person playing the capitalist class, one person playing the working class, one person playing the middle class, and one person playing as the state. Each faction has their own actions and abilities and objectives, and I found this game incredibly fascinating to play. But it was definitely not the easiest game to learn, and it also took quite a long time to play. Well, apparently Hegemonic Games were listening, because they are about to put out World Order, which scales up the scope of the game to be about world powers vying for control, while at the same time creating a lighter gameplay experience. Just how much lighter it is, I'm not sure. The times listed for both Hegemony and World Order don't appear to be that different, but it sounds like World Order is expected to be a more streamlined game. Honestly, whether it is streamlined or not, I'm still interested in the new version of one of the most interesting games that I have played in a very long time. I can't wait to see what the differences are and what's new, but I also hope that they've kept that asymmetric feeling the same. This game is one that I've been looking forward to ever since I heard that it was announced, so that's why it ended up as my #1 anticipated game of 2025. All right, there you have it, my most anticipated games for 2025. And I can't wait for all the great games that haven't even been announced yet. But now I want you to let me know, what games are you most looking forward to this year? Did any of them make this list? Or are there games out there that I don't even know about yet that I should be excited about? Let me know down in the comments, and be sure to leave a like and subscribe so you don't miss any future videos. And until next time, let's get another round for the table.